So we're back for part 2 of the community cast. We're going to be covering the last half of season 4 here, starting with episode 8, Herstory of Dance.
Yes.
Which is a good episode.
Good Britta episode.
Exactly. I really do like this one because she hasn't really gotten a lot of chances to shine this season. So finally,
Definitely.
a little more than halfway through, she gets her chance, I guess. That's fine.
Right.
Up until this point, she kind of was a side character to other people's stories, honestly.
A little sad. So this episode starts off with the study group talking about actually the new American Inspector Spacetime show when the dean interrupts them, and he's literally dressed in black and white. He even has black and white face
makeup.
Comes
it was
in,
like Betty Boop in like the 40s.
He's straight out of that movie Pleasantville.
Absolutely. He comes in saying, "Honey, I'm Dean." And he announces that Greendale is going to be having a Sadie Hawkins dance this year because he's realized it's been ages since they've had one. Abed lets everyone know that right now he's making a conscious decision to stop filtering everything through TV because he wants to show some growth. It's been 3.5 seasons, you know?
Yeah.
So it's about time. While the dean is still there, actually, Britta is really offended by the sexist nature of the Sadie Hawkins dance, go figure. And she decides to plan her own protest dance across the cafeteria honoring a true feminist icon, Sophie B. Hawkins. Appropriate reaction.
Yes.
Thank you. Because as we all know and the study group knows, she really means Susan B. Anthony, which they inform her of. What
even
Jeff
her
said.
cat isn't her cat named Susan B. Anthony?
Yeah. Exactly. So they're just making fun of her, and it just pushes Britta further because they're being really condescending, and she's kind of had it. So she's just like, I did mean Sophie.
No, I'm gonna double down. I'm a hard commit.
Exactly. So she says she's gonna get Sophie Hawkins to be there too, because Jeff comes to her and he's like, hey, drop it, you know, you Britted the whole situation, it's fine. We all know that you
just
messed
admit
up.
You're wrong.
But exactly, and that's fine. And Britta's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And in fact, Sophie B. Hawkins is going to be there. And Kevin Chang is the DJ for the dance as well, too.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's great. So then Annie and Shirley both want to find Abed dates for the dance as a non-competition. It's a non-competitive thing for the both of them, even though it really is. That's all they do this season. So Annie finds a very quirky girl named Kat for Abed to go to the dance with. She asks him out in a balloon. It's ridiculous.
She asks it into the balloon.
Yep, and then lets it out for Abed to hear. So he says yes, but then we see Shirley approach him, and she says she finds a nice girl from her church for Abed and wants to set them up, and he ends up agreeing to go with both of them so that he can do the classic 2 dates in 1 night sitcom trope.
Yep, you gotta go with the antics,
right?
Because
he tried to grow and make changes, but when a situation like that is presented to him, what's
you
he
can't
gonna
say
do?
no when it's like placed in your lap
Absolutely
like that.
not. So then Britta ends up confiding in Pierce, and she tells Pierce that she was lying, and he tells her to not come clean and give Jeff the satisfaction because he doesn't deserve it.
Which I like. I like that he approaches her and he's like, no.
Exactly.
Don't fucking do it.
He's like, go harder for what you believe in, actually. That's what you need to do. And then he tells her to get off of his computer so he can check his email. Because he doesn't think he can do that on any computer. He
has to do it specifically on that computer.
Yeah, I love it. And then Troy just really wants to plan some hijinks for Britta's dance that he's helping her plan. So I think that's really interesting, and we'll talk about that too as far as like Troy's character this episode. So then later on we're at the dance. Time keeps going by, and Jeff is basically just tormenting Britta about Sophie B. Hawkins showing up, and she's getting more and more stressed out.
Her impending failure.
Exactly.
She's Britta-ing it.
Exactly. Every minute that goes by. And then Abed tries to successfully pull off his 2 dates, but ends up meeting a coat check girl named Rachel he ends up really liking because she realizes what he's doing, and we get the introduction of one of the greatest community guest stars ever, Brie Larson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
How amazing is that?
The
we
best.
Get Brie fucking Larson, Captain Marvel. She's
on Community as Abed's love interest.
Yes.
It's the best. So he ends up kind of getting into her because she realizes what he's doing. She knows that he's doing both the little sitcom trope. And then Shirley and Annie actually find out that he's on a date with both of the girls that they picked, and they're a little upset about it because...
for good reason.
Exactly, you used both of us. You said you wanted to grow and change, and we presented you with an opportunity to, and you just slapped us in the face with it.
Yeah.
So he apologizes and said he couldn't resist the trope right in front of him, but while doing so, he missed the other trope right in front of his face as well, which is Rachel. So Shirley and Annie tell him to go after her because haven't you ever seen a movie? is what Shirley says. So they tell Abed to basically make his like declaration to Rachel and go find her because he went back to the co-check room and she wasn't there. She was gone.
Yeah.
He missed his chance. So we go back to the dean, and he's telling Britta how much it means to the students that Sophie B. Hawkins is coming. He lets Britta know that a large percentage of Greendale students sort of gave up in the mid-90s, so this is like a really big moment for them.
I love that. He's like, just so you know, everybody's anxiously awaiting.
Yep, they can't. They're really looking forward to this. They can't believe you planned it, and Britta realizes that she's in super fucking deep at this point.
Way over her head, right?
Yeah, doesn't know what she's doing. The crowd starts cheering for Sophie because they've gotten over waiting, and Britta goes up on stage to try to calm them down, and the crowd realizes Sophie isn't coming, and they're really upset. But then, somehow, miraculously, amazing music starts playing, and Sophie B. Hawkins walks through the cafeteria, and everyone starts cheering, and she takes the stage and starts her set.
And Britta is like bewildered.
Yeah, she doesn't know how this is happening. Like, did she will this to happen? This can't be possible.
Right.
So then while she's playing, Abed interrupts her performance to make his public declaration of love for Rachel, and he gets the girl, and they listen to the rest of her set together. And everyone's kind of losing it. Jeff cannot figure out how this happened, and the dean thinks that he's going to have to give his amulet to Britta now.
Yeah.
Everyone can't figure it out, and then Pierce ends up confessing that he used his Hawthorne Wipes connection to get Sophie B. Hawkins to show up because he didn't like how Jeff was treating Britta.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice moment because he reminds Jeff that, you know, everyone makes fun of Britta. They use her name as, you know, a way to say that you messed something up. And he's like, you know, you're the reason that you got closure with your dad. That wouldn't have happened if Britta wasn't there. And Jeff actually has this really, really sweet moment where he reaches out and sends a text to Britta at the dance telling her that she did an awesome job and she Britted the hell out of it.
Aww.
And then he goes and stands next to her. And she looks so cute because he's like watching her while she's dancing. She's got her little outfit on. She's like swaying to the music. It's like adorable. Like I watch that scene and
really
I just love it. I love it so much. And then he gets up and goes and stands with her after she reads the message. And it's just a super touching moment.
And he's there for her,
Yep, because of Pierce, because of Pierce too. And then the end tag is a fun one with Troy and Abed making Sophie B. Hawkins sing little silly things for them, like, damn, I wish I had some ice cream.
I was about to say, because if anybody doesn't remember, damn, I wish I was your lover.
Beautiful.
Oh, man.
I love it. And then the dean interrupts them and makes Sophie B. Hawkins sing Dean, I wish I was your lover, and had Jeffrey's name added in there too.
Oh my god, yeah.
In case you forgot.
That's a fun one.
So I actually think this is a really sweet, pretty fun episode as far as all the characters go.
Pretty solid one. Everybody feels authentic.
I think so.
I really appreciate Pierce standing up for Britta because
people.
He sees that she's the only one who steps to Jeff, who really like tries to hold him accountable, who is trying her best but is also flawed, you know, because Shirley always comes off so much holier than thou.
Exactly.
Britta's actually really a flawed person who's like trying her best
constantly.
And you know, made Jeff have some sympathy for her because she does take it like a champ for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
And for
she's
once,
not like Annie. She doesn't go, like, whine and cry about it. Britta
or
just
come
takes
up with some crazy
the
elaborate...
George Michael Faith on a telescreen to get back at Jeff.
True, exactly. Like, Britta actually takes it on the chin.
Yeah,
and
in stride or with stride.
Exactly. And Pierce actually advocates for her and helps Jeff kind of have clarity and see that, like, Britta's such a valuable member of their group, you know, and that, like, he needs to stop shitting all over her.
Yeah. I don't like how Troy is reduced to just, like, a little side character who's trying to plan hijinks. It's like he doesn't know who he is without Abed.
Yeah.
And I thought we established in, like, Season 2 and Season 3 that Troy and Abed are very much characters on their own and they can be without each other, especially when he was going to go to AC Repair School. So the fact that he's just reduced to this character who can't plan hijinks without his best friend and is just planning a dance with his girlfriend is very... Yeah, like, how could you make Donald Glover just do that?
And he didn't even have, like, a central role in any of that. In planning the
he
dance
really didn't.
Any
At
jokes
least Annie and Shirley
hijinks.
have their competition, but then it's like, that's all they're reduced to.
Yeah, and then again, the women are reduced to...
Plot device for Abed to do, like, his fun story narrative.
Exactly. And how do you do that? By putting women against each other, you know? So...
Unknowingly.
It's like we get one really nice story at the expense of all the other stories, kind of, just being...
Well, the good thing that comes about that story is he doesn't get anything of it other than showing that the way he treats people on TV isn't fair. There's human beings and you can't manipulate people, which is a lesson Abed needs to learn, like, every season.
Exactly.
Be reminded
Very
of.
true.
Yeah,
very
that
true.
is true.
Because it's really how he operates. But of it comes a relationship that seemed really good for him, and he was too dense and ignorant actually to understand that this is someone that he actually could connect with in a way that's like, it's so easy that you don't actually understand how significant it is because it was so seamless. And he missed out on it, and I like that he had to, like, use his like TV trope like magic and like his like knowledge of all that to like get her back and to like win her back, and it felt like a really heartfelt relationship.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like it was a good use of how Abed sees media and uses media rather than doing something dorky. Is like, no, I know what like you want and I'm going to do it kind of tongue in cheek, but also with a sincerity of like, this is how much you mean to me. Is I feel like I'm in a movie.
And exactly with the sincerity of that's how Abed chooses to communicate when things are hard for him and he doesn't fully understand. He's like, but I know in the movie this is what you do to get the girl and I want the girl. You know?
And it's like this is what I have to do.
Exactly. And so he uses that as his tool to get them. But like again, in comparison to like Greendale Babies and like Abed TV going on in his head, it's like Abed knows he's in real life. He's using tools of pop culture to help him in his real life and to help him cope and to communicate. Yeah. But it's not that he's relegated to this like fake reality in his head either.
Exactly.
You know?
It reminds me of when he was doing My Dinner with Andre with Jeff. Like he was trying to tell Jeff, I miss you. Like this is his way of admitting like I messed up, I'm wrong, but you're still out there. I know you are. Like I'm doing the declaration of love.
Yeah.
I know I'm doing a bit, but I'm using this bit as a medium to communicate to you instead of using poetry or a song or note. I'm using a bit because it's how I do it.
So true.
That's
I really like that.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, I think we'll jump into season 4, episode 9, Intro to Felt Surrogacy.
I
loved
love
it the first time through, and then I started feeling differently every other time. But it's got some really cool, fun stuff.
Parts.
Yeah, it's
really
unique. Definitely.
It's a fun episode.
Yeah, this is for people who have seen it. We'll remind you if you haven't seen it. This is a puppet episode.
Yeah,
like full on Muppets puppets.
Muppets puppets.
Yeah, it's incredible. I wish I was able to have and collect all of the puppets myself.
Oh my god,
that would be amazing. So this one starts off. The study group is actually sitting in awkward silence. There's no conversation going on. It's totally weird, and we go straight into like the credit scene.
Yeah, no one talks for the whole
nothing,
30 seconds that we're there.
So we come back from that, and the dean bursts in, and he said, "This has been going on for days." Days, he says.
So
not
just
one day.
It's
been going on for a while.
Assembling and not talking for days.
Yep, and he's basically
that's so weird,
right? Imagine that, this group not talking. Yeah, right. So he's had it, and he decides to use puppet therapy because it's on the rise to help get the group to open up to each other. And he actually has puppets of everyone in the group made, little hand puppets.
Yes.
Including
it's
Jeff
ridiculous.
Shirtless with a whip.
Yep, let me just take that, and he grabs that away. So Pierce is missing, and Troy says no one has seen him since he's lost his mind in the woods.
Pierce is gone.
Yep. And then the dean is like, "Oh, my puppets are already working." And Shirley tries to tell the dean that what happened is between them and Jesus, and Jesus don't snitch.
I love that
one of my favorites. And then the dean rips off his outfit, and he's Dean
Pinocchio!
And has the nose and everything. It's ridiculous. But then he sits back down in his seat, and then they fully get into it. We go from the study group with their hand puppets to, like Miranda said, like Muppet-style puppets. Like, the characters are full-on puppets. Then we see them start to basically tell the dean what happened. So they start to explain through song that they're in a rut, and they need something new and exciting to do together. They need an adventure.
Yeah.
So they decide to ride in a hot air balloon. So while they're still singing through their song, they go into the hot air balloon and meet their balloon guide and instructor, who is played by Sarah Bareilles.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Huge,
I love it.
Huge musical cameo.
Yeah, so she sings a little song about being their balloon guide, and she's going to check the ties before she sends them off. But, you know, of course, them
she
being
gets
the group,
distracted singing her
exactly.
song.
The group ends up they take off without her, and they don't have their balloon guide, and now they're singing and distracted, and they're stuck in a hot air balloon just flying in the air, and it's terrifying. So they're all screaming and freaking out. They end up using whatever you use in a hot air balloon to, like, you know, deflate the downstream or whatever to come down out of the air. But they're going to end up crashing. So they're, like, flying through the air. Exactly. And while they're falling, Troy has a really great line where he's like, "Hey, has anyone noticed Professor Duncan hasn't been around for a really long time?"
I love it.
It's so hilarious.
Such a fun little throw-in. Because it's true. He just came and went. We haven't mentioned anything about it.
There's no addressing it or anything. Nope. It's totally fine.
Yep.
So while their balloon ends up crashing in a forest, they meet a forest man who claims that he's a Greendale alumni.
Yep.
And he was driven crazy by Greendale, wanted to live in the forest, and he feeds the group psychotropic berries that totally drug them out.
Did we mention that this is the guy from Seinfeld?
No,
yeah,
true, yeah.
Yeah, he's, oh man, I should look that up. I'll let you keep going.
I was in the pool!
Yeah. So he feeds them psychotropic berries that make them drug out and admit their darkest secrets to one another.
Jason Alexander.
There you go.
Played, George,
from Seinfeld.
He gives them psychotropic
you know him very well. So then we're back in the study room, and the study group is all their normal selves with their hand puppets, and we see Shirley confess her secret about seeing her husband, or thinking she sees her husband, Andre, at the grocery store.
With another woman.
So she leaves her kids there to follow him, doesn't realize she's driven, out of town and left her kids all night at the grocery store.
She left them all night in the grocery store.
Exactly. So it's,
which is a pretty shocking moment.
It's super hardcore.
Yeah.
So then the group is all quiet because they're like, Shirley, we don't remember you telling that story.
Oh, shit.
We don't, and then everyone figures out that they each forgot what the other person or what everyone in the group had said that night because they were so drugged out on the berries. And then they're all celebrating.
They made them real talky, but real remembering.
Exactly. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. So then they're all celebrating, rejoicing that no one remembered their secrets, but then Annie notices that Shirley is looking like she's just horrified and she just wants to leave. Exactly, because that's supposed to be her darkest secret, even though it's not. We'll get to that later. But then Jeff tells everyone that Shirley's alone now, and they have to confess their darkest secrets as well to restore the balance. And to make it easier, they do the puppets do so via song, and then we see them all admitting their secrets back in that forest scene in the wood as puppets.
Around the campfire.
We find out that Jeff dated a woman with a kid and promised he'd go to a baseball game that the kid had, but then he bailed and behaved just like his dad would in the situation. Britta admits that even though she claims to be an activist, she's never voted in an election, only when it comes to The Voice.
Oh, yeah.
Right, ridiculous. Annie reveals she was struggling in history and let Professor Cornwallis rub her feet for all the answers to a test. And Troy admits to causing the Greendale Fire of 03 when he lit an anthill on fire. All because he burned an anthill.
Yeah. 55 acres went up in a blaze.
That's my favorite one. So then they all leave the forest and they're walking back as puppets, and then Pierce reveals he's never actually slept with Eartha Kitt.
Yep.
The darkest secret, I think, actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest scandal of them all.
Honestly. So then back in the study room, the dean congratulates everyone on a very successful therapy session, and he's about to reveal a secret about himself when Britta interrupts him because she realizes Abed didn't reveal anything. And then Abed says he never shared a secret. He didn't know everyone he didn't know why everyone was acting weird, so he mirrored their behavior. And everyone goes, "Aw," because Abed's so cute. And we see the group just still respects and accepts each other, and they leave the study room close as ever, and the dean is left alone, but not really, because he has shirtless puppet Jeff to keep him company.
Yeah.
And then we get, I think, one of our favorite end tags. We get the entire group of community study group puppets humming the Daybreak song and doing
intro
a
to our
beatbox thing.
podcast.
It's actually part of it exactly is the intro to this little podcast.
Yep.
We love it that much.
It's so
very
good.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's just a fun little clip of one of the most revisited jokes in the series.
Exactly. It's like the song's a consistent theme. So
And
it's
this
really
ain't the
cute
last
to see
time
them
we hear
do
it
that.
either.
No, you're gonna keep hearing it. So I think we all agree that we like this episode. I love the puppets. I love the silliness.
Fun medium, super
It
fun.
is.
They haven't done it yet.
No, exactly, and it's a really cool thing to see them explore. But when it comes to what they're revealing about each other and how it kind of loses all of that.
It loses a lot of
strongness.
the steam.
Yeah. Again, because it goes back to what are the consequences of these actions? What are the consequences of revealing these secrets? And it's like, I don't mind that it's resolved with they still all accept each other and grow from it. But the fact that they reveal these things that don't affect one another and really don't have any real life consequences, it just feels like it was written in there for drama and not to develop anything.
Absolutely.
Honestly, it feels like this one was like, we'll get to it later, but there's an episode called Heroic Origins where they basically explain how these characters are interconnected in ways that they didn't expect and the drama that comes out of it. It felt like they could have done that, but obviously they'd be doing the two of the same episode. But I agree with the opinion that these secrets don't do anything for the characters. They're just these really weird things that seem out of character. Like Jeff abandoning someone and being just like, his dad is like, he hates his dad. He wouldn't do that. He'd come up with a way, but he wouldn't just be like, and I ghosted a kid.
I don't think Jeff would ever date a woman that has a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
In my head, I was just going to say that. Jeff wouldn't date a woman with a kid to begin with. So.
Annie getting her feet rubbed by Cornwallis.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
First of all, it's so gross.
She's too smart for that too.
Yeah.
That's disrespecting the intelligence you built up
class.
for 3 seasons.
No. And if she was, she would own up to it, or at least try to find a different way around it, or be like, the whole episode is like, I stayed up all night and I tried studying everything, and like her frantically trying to pass. Yeah, exactly. we talked about it earlier when we were prepping for this episode. It's like we all remember back to when Annie's afraid to even compromise her play for Pierce giving her money.
Yeah.
Yep.
And felt so guilty about that. Now you're telling me that she let this weird guy who's already had problems with co-eds.
That are well known.
It's well known.
Yeah.
And she let him rub her feet for answers to a test and then kept that from the whole group.
Completely out of character.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like all of these things kind of make no sense, and they're drawn there for dramatic effect and not for any real character development, you know.
Absolutely.
Also, I find it weird that they're like, oh yeah, Abed's like, oh, everybody was just acting weird, so I just mirrored your behavior. Like, we'll talk about it, won't ruin anything coming up in season 6, but when we do basic email security and everybody's acting weird, he's like, did you guys all do the thing that we agreed we weren't going to do? Like, Abed has always been
He'll
savage.
confront the situation.
He confronts it. You're telling me he would just acted weird and would have been like, why are we all acting weird? What's going on?
Exactly.
I don't remember anything.
He's not just going to be like, oh, that didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Abed is going to conform to social norms of like everything's awkward, so I'm going to be awkward too.
No.
Yeah.
His thing is that he calls people out.
Yeah,
his thing is that he doesn't understand it.
He just doesn't care for like the social norms and like the way we go about stuff. So that's why he's so unique and he goes about life in such a unique way. But exactly, for him to be like for days too. If it was like we just got back last night or this morning.
But
it was like for days. And like for the days, someone would be asked like, you know, like, did something happen? Like, I want to, like, no one is talking to each other.
For 3 days.
It's stupid. And it's like a needless line.
This one is again, fun. The songs are good.
They're really good. I do like the songs.
I see what they're trying to do. I'm not going to lie. It also feels like Guest Star Central because, like, we got Sarah Bareilles, we got the guy from Seinfeld.
Exactly.
It's like, this is definitely, like, their last-ditch effort to be like, please don't cancel us, you know? Again, they're beats that we like, but, like, it feels, again, inauthentic.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, it doesn't feel true to the characters that we've seen for 3 years.
Yeah.
And like it just doesn't feel like something that
it doesn't
they would
accomplish
do.
anything.
Yeah, and that's what we were saying too. Like there's really, again, no development, no growth, no one. I guess the group feels closer, but I don't really know how much closer they can feel at this point.
Yeah,
you know?
we
So
already
it's just
know their
like,
family.
If they're going to
Pretty weak
reveal,
lesson.
if they're going to reveal some things, I feel like it should be. It should definitely
Stakes should be higher.
Should be the worst
Exactly.
secrets that interact with each other.
And not
so
just
that way it
because
affects
they went
each
to the
other.
forest because they were bored and got high on berries.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it does. It feels like a cheap reason that they revealed all these secrets, right?
Yeah.
I give you that for sure.
So I think with that, we'll just jump into our next one. We'll do episode 10, Intro to Knots,
Yes.
which is a Christmas episode, just so you guys know, that ended up airing April 18th.
2 days before 420.
Yeah, is when we had our Christmas episode air.
Again,
Oh,
what the
boy.
fuck?
Yeah, we'll get into that.
You can blame NBC scheduling and telling community to fuck off.
Basically. So the study group is actually meeting at Jeff's apartment for a Christmas party, and Annie is the first one to arrive, and she redecorates Jeff's apartment for the entire occasion to make it seem a little bit more homey. Because,
Second zero.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, immediate entrance, that's what Annie starts doing. That's her purpose. So then the rest of the group all start showing up with gifts they weren't supposed to bring, but everyone just couldn't resist not bringing a present. Except for Pierce, because he's with Gilbert doing sensitivity training.
Yeah, again,
Pierce
so
isn't there.
conveniently,
Exactly.
Pierce isn't there.
But Chang is there. So we have Kevin Chang who shows up, and he brought gifts, even though they weren't supposed to, because no means yes.
I get it. No means yes.
I get it. And then Abed really wants to do a Die Hard Christmas. He makes this known right off the bat.
Yep.
So Annie reveals to everyone that she found out from Kendra, with a QU,
Uh-huh.
that their group
Our
their group got a failing grade on their shared paper, and that she's invited Professor Cornwallis to the party to basically schmooze him and get a better grade, and that's the whole purpose of this party.
Right.
So he shows up and starts behaving coldly towards everyone, and he lets them know off the bat that he has to go see his daughter later, so he can't stay long.
Right.
Jeff tries to charm him and fails, and he sends Annie and Shirley to go, use their womanly ways with him and bring him some appetizers. And Jeff ends up telling Britta that he bombed his section because he got free tickets to see Tom Waits, but he didn't think it would actually cause them to fail, so he's a little confused. And Britta tells him he needs to fix the situation.
Right.
So the professor ends up getting wise to what the study group is doing, tells them he knows that they're just trying to raise their C-, and after hearing that they actually aren't failing, Jeff confronts Annie and is really upset, and then Annie says a C- could cost her valedictorian, and that is basically failing to her.
Yeah.
So Jeff is upset and starts to rant about the professor, who overhears him and changes their grade to an F now.
Oh,
So they actually do have an
Now
F
they are failing.
Yep.
Yes.
So Jeff calls a meeting with the study group in his bedroom and explains the situation to everyone, except for the fact that he bombed his section. And he's trying to convince everyone that they just need to get their grade back up to a C- because that's a passing grade. And Annie said that's a lie. They tell dumb people when they're fitting them for work boots.
Oh, one of the meanest jokes.
Annie Edison's a savage. I love that one. You pointed that one out to me, and I never forgot it. So Jeff decides that he wants to try to talk to Cornwallis man to man, but when the group leaves the room, they see that Kevin has actually tied him to a chair. And he's like, I did good, right? This is what you guys wanted. So Jeff tries to take advantage of the situation immediately and tries to get Cornwallis to change their grade, but the professor believes he can turn the study group against each other and starts to go after them one by one with all their, like, little weaknesses.
Because he says he's only going to give away one A, right?
Exactly, yeah. He wants to figure out, exactly, to the person who turns whoever in or whatever. And Abed's basically just observing everything like he's watching Die Hard in the Bruce McLean tank top that Troy got him for Christmas, which is a really
goes
cute
and
gift.
pops popcorn
Exactly.
to watch them.
He's just watching everyone. He doesn't even care what's going on.
Yep.
So as Cornwallis starts to single everyone out, the group is slowly falling apart. He even pits Annie and Shirley against each other about the competition in valedictorian because he reveals that Shirley is Annie's competition. So again, Annie and Shirley, and because she even puts Britta above Shirley, which offends Shirley hardcore.
Of course, for good reason.
It would me too, to be honest. You know? So as everyone's just bickering and arguing and going at each other, Jeff reminds them to stick together, and the professor is about to tell everyone what Jeff did, but before he can, Jeff takes the bullet and tells everyone himself, very much in Winger fashion. And before everyone can really start to get arguing too much again, they're interrupted by a knock at the door. And Abed is like, oh my god, this is, what could possibly be happening? This is even better than I could have imagined. And it's just the dean at the door who is really hurt that he wasn't invited. So he leaves because his feelings are
blast at holiday themed parties.
Exactly. How could you, Jeffrey? He's his neighbor. I mean, come on. So the group realizes that Cornwallis has escaped. After they answer the door, he's not in the chair anymore, and he says one of them did it, and they must figure out who, and whoever does is going to get the passing grade, exactly. So as he tries to keep on goading them, Jeff says it doesn't matter whoever turns himself in, because no matter what, they're going to forgive them, because they know someone else after them is going to screw up even bigger, and they're going to forgive that person because that's what they do as a group. So they tie the professor back up.
Exactly.
Because he's just like, that's stupid, and they're mad at him, so they literally
fuck you then.
tie him back up. It's insane. And they actually realize he was never really trapped to begin with as they start to open up Kevin's poorly wrapped gifts and realize that he doesn't know how to tie a knot.
Intro to knots.
Exactly. Love it. So they call the professor out, and he admits that he staged the whole thing because he's lonely on Christmas since his daughter wasn't actually coming to see him, and he agrees to give them a C+ after they untie them and they continue their party. Everyone unwraps their various gifts from each other, and Chang takes a phone call outside and admits that he wasn't able to get the study group expelled like he was planning. And then we get the end tag where the dean joins back in the party with kittens.
Yes.
And these guys are Jeffrey.
Oh, God.
And then while everyone's got little kittens on their lap, Abed wonders what's happening in the darkest timeline.
Yeah.
So then we get a glimpse, and we see evil Jeff is in a courtroom convincing a judge to let evil Annie free, and they kiss, and they're ready to get the rest of their evil study group and take over and destroy the prime timeline.
Yep.
So I think the end tag is actually the best part of this actual episode.
Yeah, exactly. Because we get the dean giving away puppies to everybody, including not one but two named Jeffrey.
Double Jeffrey.
Exactly. And then now a revisit of the darkest timeline and continuing the fact that their only goal is to their goal is to destroy the prime time.
Exactly. We get some antagonistic
They're assembling
forces.
the darkest Avengers.
Thank you for saying that's the best part of this episode, because everything else I think we agree just like fails on so many different fronts.
Overall it's like, a professor tries to tear the study group apart and they're stronger and they can't be torn apart because we know they're always going to forgive each other, but we kind of have already figured that out.
That's been told.
So it's like, if you're going to do a holiday-themed episode, do
Die Hard.
Yeah, actually do Die Hard. You know what? Damn.
Yeah, I didn't get
Instead of having Abed again be an observer who's just watching this all happen and not even in the way that he usually does.
Yeah, not even participating in it. He's literally just a spectator.
Not being any character from Die Hard or anything.
Exactly, and from the very beginning, they're, again, just undoing all of this progress we make. Annie comes in, she's She's the doting wife.
Absolutely.
She's decorating his
God.
apartment.
It's gross.
She's in exactly.
You just
It
sit
is
with
gross.
You can try it.
Exactly, and she's like all obsessed with making this house a home, and
Yep.
you know, and when the other people come in, she's like, "Oh, it's just something we threw together." It's like again pairing herself off with Jeff.
With Jeff like that. Like, it's so childish.
Yeah, it
It's
makes
like
no
season 1
sense.
Annie.
Yeah.
And then again, doing whatever it takes to get the grade, even if it's immoral or wrong or whatever. Lying to everybody, manipulating them. In some ways, that is like Annie, but the way that they execute it just feels so weird.
Exactly. Her staging a whole Christmas party that they invite a professor to outside of, like, school campus.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really make any sense either.
To raise their grade?
Yeah, and then it's like, would she want to invite this professor here when apparently she's getting her feet rubbed by him, too?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's just so many inconsistencies.
Yeah, exactly. And it also just feels
It
like...
really makes Annie, I don't want to use a poor word, but seem like a slut for her grade, because it's like she rubbed the feet and she's creating a party.
To bring them over, yeah,
To
exactly.
improve it. It's just,
It doesn't
it's
make her
gross.
look good.
Annie
No.
would just work harder, study more, do more.
And basically all the other characters there are there just to create
side
tension.
pieces,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
To get
side
mad at
pieces.
Annie.
Yep.
Yeah, to get mad at Annie, to get mad at each other, to make them all turn on each other. But it's
Mhm.
like, you know, just for it to, again, be for zero consequence of he was never really tied up.
Hmm.
He just did this because he was lonely. It's like this kid, not to be a bitch, but like this
This
like
is the weakest
professor is,
teacher.
is the weakest teacher. He's
Oh,
the one that
absolutely.
we'd want to spend time with the least.
And we do.
He's not even likable. He's not.
No.
He's not likable
There's
at all.
nothing
No,
redeeming.
and like he's kind of a creep, so it makes no sense that they'd invite him to his
Exactly.
party.
Why
you know?
spend the money to get a guest star
Yeah.
when he
An
isn't even a good
expensive one,
character?
too.
Yeah.
He's a fucking expensive actor.
He is.
He's been in a
really
lot of
is,
shit.
yeah.
And like, I feel like if they wanted to do like speaking about him as a professor as a whole, if they wanted to do the straight lace, I'm a regular dude, I'm so straight cut, it's annoying. Like the chief from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You could
Oh,
do
yeah.
that. I'm
Something
the
like
straight
that.
shooter, but a straight shooter is crazy. We're gonna see later with the character that comes later. She's literally a straight shooter, and it works
Oh, yeah.
amazingly. The normal, boring character is actually still so exciting.
It's a great foil
'Cause there's so
to
much to
these
tap into.
characters.
These zany weirdos.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
really
They become
is.
like a foil and become like their own archetype because of it.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's so true.
And instead they're reduced to like, we're doing all this stuff to try to pass this class, we're still manipulating each other, and we don't quite know what we're doing, and none of it quite makes sense, and then all of it comes out that it's just,
Exactly.
oh, he staged the whole thing. And again, it feels like they're dumbing it down, it feels too simple.
It feels like they created all of this conflict just for them to get over. Doesn't feel like this conflict
Thank
came
you.
from anywhere. It wasn't built up for
No.
a period of time.
And
It
that's
started
a
and ended with this
continuation
episode.
from felt surrogacy, where
Yep.
it's just like, again, you created this just to resolve it and not for actual development.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, they haven't learned anything. They aren't any like better as a
No.
group.
No, actually they're not. And it's just like, you know, now Annie and Shirley know that they're number one and number two or whatever, and
Now they're competing even more.
yeah,
Great.
exactly. It's not a lot.
Where's
comes
this
from
competition tension having to come in with honestly 3 episodes left in the season?
Exactly. They're going
Who
to
cares?
introduce that mini, like, little subplot that really, exactly, just makes women competitors.
Also, we don't see them graduate or become valedictorian by
As
the end
it
of the
is,
season,
yeah.
so it's
So, I
especially
mean,
who
come
gives
on.
a shit.
Yeah.
Jeff graduates early, everyone else graduates off screen.
Yeah.
Spoiler,
So-
but yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. I guess with that, we'll... Not a lot of great feelings on
It's
Intro to
a
Knots.
real weak episode. This
It
in
kind
the
of
middle,
is,
it gets like really dodgy. Where
Because
there's
the
like a couple
chains
good
part
ones.
is like,
Is
oh,
so,
I'm
yeah.
I'm here
I'm
and
this
I'm
guy.
just
I
fun.
don't know how to tie knots, and I like
I'm
to
Kevin.
put
And
bubble
then
wrap.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, my plan to get them kicked
Yeah.
out of school didn't work, and it's like, really? That was supposed to get them
this was
kicked
your
out of
plan?
school?
Because the
How was
reason
this
why
your
they
plan?
were supposed to fail was the reason why they failed or did bad was because of Jeff, which was something completely out of your control.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was just assuming that by tying him
the-
up, that they
the
would get
professor,
arrested,
yeah,
and then
or
they would
something
get kicked
crazy
out of
would
school.
happen.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. Yeah,
Ugh.
still shit.
Just-
Cool.
Yeah, just
Which
weird.
why is City College obsessed with getting them kicked out
The
of
Greendale, exactly. They want to get Greendale shut down. They don't want to get the Greendale 7 kicked
Kicked
out.
out.
That's
Exactly.
not their plan.
The people who would
That
have a
doesn't
problem with
make
the Greendale 7 based on the last couple seasons would actually be the school board.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, on to episode 11 then.
Yeah, basic human anatomy. This one does things right, I think.
Okay,
I
yeah.
do like this one.
Yes. Written by Jim Rash,
Yes,
which is an
very
awesome
good
one.
Yes,
point to
great.
bring
Thank you
up.
for bringing
Written
that
by
up.
One
our
of the
very
stronger
own Dean
episodes,
Kelton.
definitely.
Yeah.
We love it. So yeah, that's why I think this one feels like it fits a little better into the whole, I guess, at least the group dynamic, because
Yeah.
season 4 itself is just kind of a mess.
It's choppy.
Yeah. So, starting off with this one, the study group is meeting to discuss their final history project. Apparently, Professor Cornwallis has phoned it in,
Mhm.
but Annie and Shirley both want to get back on top for valedictorian, so they need a good grade. And they decide to do banners reflecting a moment from history. So while they're all discussing this, Shirley asks Troy and Britta what they have planned for their anniversary, for their 1-year anniversary. And both of them didn't even realize that they've been dating for a year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this awkward moment for both of them. But per Annie's...
like, we didn't forget our anniversary.
Exactly. No, of course not. We knew it was coming up. And per Annie's suggestion, they agree to have lunch at Senior Kevin's where it all began. But right after that, Troy reminds Abed that it's the 3rd-year anniversary of them watching the original Freaky Friday. And he got Abed, like, you know, a movie set with all of them, and they performed the scene from the original movie where the characters switch bodies.
But I wish I could be your life for just one day.
And then they're very upset when all the lights are flickering and everything's happening and they don't actually switch bodies.
Yeah.
It's a huge moment.
Routine light switch check.
Exactly. So Troy wakes up the next morning on his anniversary with Britta, and he excuses himself and leaves her in the room. And he goes to Abed's room, and he tells Abed that they switched bodies. So Abed goes with it, no questions asked. So Troy is Abed, and Abed is Troy.
Yeah.
It's great. It's actually really great. They do a little body switch. Yep,
really
they play each
well.
other. It's awesome. So as the study group is preparing to work on their banners, Annie reveals that she and Shirley are being beat by Leonard for valedictorian.
Yeah.
So we find out that fun piece of information, and Troy and Abed enter the study room and announce to everyone they've switched bodies, and that in order to switch back, they have to find the original DVD, which is now, of course, gone missing.
Of course.
Yep. So Troy as Abed has to go find the DVD, while Abed as Troy has to go on an anniversary lunch date with Britta.
Yeah.
Jeff puts their whole project on hold because he wants to get this all resolved, and he tells Annie and Shirley to find out what's keeping Leonard on top, and he's going to find the DVD. And when Pierce asks what he can do, he tells Pierce to stay alive. Or don't.
Yeah,
or exactly.
Yeah. But Pierce
Real nice.
is again isolated, except for in this time he's not just isolated, he's not on screen.
At all, yeah.
They're
Doesn't
just like,
appear.
go sit in the corner, we don't care.
Yep.
And we forgot about you. Let's
Exactly,
just let
yep.
the story
And
continue
we'll get
without
back to at the end of the episode.
you. You could have been here, but there's
Really
there's
sad.
3 pairs of 2, so actually
so
ouch.
sorry.
Odd one out, literally.
Yep. So Jeff actually goes to the dean to try to get the dean to give Troy the DVD, saying he found it. But the dean actually only pretends to switch bodies with Jeffrey.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, which is so fucking great.
Which is awesome, and I
Yes.
love it even more that Jim Rash wrote that.
Yep.
Right? Because he knows Craig Pelton.
Yep.
And he's like, this is his
He
dream.
would die to be Jeffrey.
Mm.
So at lunch, Britta is trying to get Abed to drop his Troy act by antagonizing him with the waiter who just trashes Die Hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's this whole thing. He's talking about how it's riddled with plot holes, this and that. It's like a suckfest of a movie, all this stuff. And you're like, oh no, is Abed going to go off on this guy? What's going to happen? But he doesn't crack. He keeps his Troy impression up, and he's like, let's order some appetizers or whatever. Keeps going with it. And Jeff ends up joining Troy, who is impersonating Abed still, to look for the DVD. So then we get this little scene with Annie and Shirley. They go to ask the dean for help to figure out what's keeping Leonard at the top. And the dean is just acting like Jeff the entire time, texting on his phone, being all suave, and Annie's like twirling her hair, losing her shit.
Look into confidential files for another student? Go ahead, I don't care.
Exactly, I don't mind at all. So he ends up looking into the files, and as he's imitating Jeff, Rip opens his shirt and admits to helping them. And Annie passes out. But he finds out that Leonard he got an A+ in a class decades ago, and he's been taking every other class.
Pass, fail.
Exactly, since then to keep a perfect GPA. So they go track him down and confront him, and he's busted and runs away. And that whole thing is basically solved that quickly, I guess. And the dean is Jeff is like, you guys can go back to fighting, and I can go back to
Yeah, because now they're fighting with each other.
Exactly, and his part is done. He's helped them do whatever he needs to do, and now the dean is Jeff can just not be involved anymore.
Yep.
So it's actually very, very fitting. So then through a conversation with Abed acting as Troy at Senior Kevin's, Britta realizes that her relationship with the real Troy hasn't been going as well as she thought. And then we see while that's happening simultaneously, Jeff and Troy find out from the janitors that they should check the lost and found for the DVD. And while they're looking there, Jeff's frustration at this point basically reaches his peak. He's had it. He's done with this stupid bit. He just wants to pass the class and do their final project. And he's going off, and then Troy's like, yeah, I'd be upset too, but I'd rather be here than, have to be in Abed's position.
Yeah, because he has to go sit with Britta.
Exactly.
And basically
go through all of that. So Jeff finally realizes what Troy has been avoiding, and he really does empathize with him. But he also tells Troy that he can't avoid doing what he has to do, and that he needs to be a man and face his problems. Mm-hmm. So back at Senior Kevin's, Abed, who is still impersonating Troy, is opening up to Britta about how he feels in their relationship, and how he feels like it's been really difficult to make things work, and things have just felt different. Mm-hmm. And Britta realizes why Troy basically pretended to switch bodies, because Abed is breaking up with her. Mm-hmm. And it's this really, really, like, big, sad moment, and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, especially because it's Abed and Britta.
Exactly. It's really awkward, and it's kind of supposed to meant to be. It's meant to be. Yeah. So Jeff and Troy show up at Senior Kevin's with the DVD, and Troy and Abed switch back because Troy, as Abed, tells him that, he needs to own up to his own stuff. So he apologizes for doing the bit, but he admits that by doing that, he's basically proven he's not ready for something as serious as what he has for Britta. Yeah. And he doesn't want to jeopardize their friendship because he loves being around Britta as a friend, because he knows that they can do that right. And Britta gives him this, like, nod and a smile, and, like, she agrees with him. And you know that they're okay, but it's a really big conversation that they have. And it's very mature of Troy to realize that. So then we're back at the school, and the study group is going to the study room, and they find that Pierce has done their entire project. He's done all the banners. They're incredible looking. Yeah. They can't believe it. They're blown away. And then the dean enters and apologizes profusely and repeatedly for having Jeffrey inside of him.
Because I realized that having Jeffrey inside of me was wrong.
To have Jeffrey inside of me. Nobody was inside of anyone. And then the group realizes they get an early weekend. They all leave the study room, and Britta and Troy are the last ones there, and they share a hug when everyone leaves.
Yeah. Which is really tender.
Yeah. And then we have an end tag where Troy and Abed basically are doing, like, a Freaky Friday gag reel, and they're doing their own, like, outtakes, and it's really silly and fun.
Oh my god, that one's so funny. And then the dean keeps trying to get involved.
Yes.
And then he just
Yep. And they're like, Dean, we stopped doing outtakes. So I really do love this one. It's kind of a tough one to watch sometimes, though, because it's really hard when you're really paying attention to, like, how Troy is feeling, and how he did this because he didn't want to break up with Britta because he didn't want to hurt her, but he very obviously knows that something is wrong in their relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely his way of, like, I don't know, I think this one is really, really interesting in that it shows why Abed and Troy get along so well, because in a lot of ways, Troy can kind of connect with the fact that it's like, I wish I could cope with reality the way that you do. And for once, this is really him taking that idea and running with it. And what I love is Abed doesn't think like a second about it. He's like, I woke up and I'm you. And Abed's like, oh, okay, so I'm you. Cool.
Done.
And done. And, like, just commits to it, because not only that's who Abed is, but that's what friends do, right? Exactly. It's like, if you came to me and you're like, I need you to do this crazy bit, I'd be like, okay. And so I just think it's really interesting, because it shows that, like, Troy is also coping in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
And again, he fully admits it. He's not really mature enough and ready to have this relationship with Britta and understand and do what it takes to be successful in that. But he'd rather keep the role of being a friend, because he know he can do that, which I thought was really sweet. And it shows his own growth. It shows that it's like, I'm not a full adult yet, but I care about you enough to know that, like, me sending Abed on this was wrong. And I did it because I didn't want to cope with my feelings, and you deserve better than that.
Exactly.
Even if it means me breaking up with you.
Yep. It's a really big moment for him. And I like that Jeff, even though he was annoyed at first, ends up, like, realizing that, and he's the one to tell, like, even though it's Abed as Troy, he's the one to really tell Troy, like, look, you're aware now that that's what you want to do, and you have to step up, and you have to be accountable, and you have to actually do that yourself. You can't make your best friend do it, because even though he knows what's going on,
he loves you and he understands
and
how
he
you
would
feel.
do it for you. He's doing it for you right now.
Yeah.
You can't make him do that for you.
No, that's not how this plays out. This is not how you should treat Britta. This is not how you should treat.
Exactly, and it's also Jeff kind of stepping to bat for Britta too. Thank you for saying that. Oh my God, I love that. But, like, I really do like that, because it's Jeff being there for Troy and telling Troy to do that, but then it's also Jeff being like, Britta deserves more than you having your best friend break up with her.
Yes.
Because she also put herself out there and it is in a relationship with you. That's something Britta doesn't really do either for a lot of people, and it's the first time she's been in a mildly healthy relationship with someone.
Yeah.
I appreciate the hug at the end where everybody leaves and it's still just them, and it's them kind of very much like being like, we're going to be okay as friends, and we're closing this chapter on what it was to share a relationship with one another, but, like, that doesn't mean it's the end of our story.
Exactly.
And I appreciated that.
Exactly. So I think with that, we'll head on to our next episode, which is a fun one. I'll give it that.
And it definitely tries. It's high concept.
Yes,
I'll give it that.
Which is very community. So episode 12, Heroic Origins, our origin story episode. So the study group is attempting to study for their history final. Pierce is absent because he's donating his kidney to Gilbert.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, we know that. Yep. Abed keeps asking everyone like really personal questions, and against Jeff's wishes, like they all bite and they all want to know what he's doing. So Abed says he's studying everyone's past to prove they were destined to meet, and he's figuring out their origin story.
Yes.
And then we actually see Chang spying on them while he's on the phone with Dean Spreck, and he's talking about both of them getting their vengeance. And Dean Spreck has this like weird voice changer thing for whatever reason. So Abed says that his origin story thing, it's called the Crazy Quilt of Destiny.
Yes.
It's amazing because what was taken alrery? Something was taken.
Shit.
I can't
the
remember.
Loom of Fate.
Yeah. Nice, thank you. So his Crazy Quilt of Destiny is almost complete, showing how the study group is all connected. It starts in the distant year of 2008.
Yes.
With the moment from Riverside High that shows Troy and Annie at the same school. We see Annie like talking to herself in her locker. She's like a nerd, popping pills, and she has like a confrontation with Troy, who's basically this jerk, and he's very jockey, and he writes her off and says that he doesn't want her help, as a tutor because he doesn't need to worry about that stuff because he's a football star.
Yep.
And then Abed reveals that he stole a receipt from Shirley's house on Thanksgiving, and that actually shows that they were at the mall on the same day back in 2008 as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So then he also tells everyone that Jeff and Britta have met before as well, after Jeff won an important civil liberties case for a stripper named Misty. Britta and her protest group were there, and they congratulated him, and she fist bumped Jeff, and someone took a photo of it, so it's in a newspaper.
Yes.
And this is actually all right before Britta's protester friends decided that they're leaving her because one of them ate a hamburger for the first time the other day.
And now she's not cold all the time.
It's ridiculous. I love that line so much. So they all leave her, and then Shirley actually finds out from that picture in the newspaper article that Jeff is the one who defended the stripper Andre cheated on her with. So then,
which is fucking scandalous.
It is. It's huge.
Well, he didn't
It's
know,
big.
but yes.
So Jeff and Shirley have even more like deep-seated history. So then we see Kevin Chang convinces the dean to let him drop off Greendale's lease renewal for the land that the college sublets from the Arapaho Nation. And then we know Chang is really not going to deliver it because he has this mischievous look on his face and he's plotting against the school. So Jeff is really apologetic to Shirley, but also says the case didn't really work out the way that I wanted it to either. Like, if you remember, it's the reason that I was found out for being a fake lawyer.
Exactly.
Wow, Jeff, dick move. So Troy is telling Annie that he's ready to forgive her for ruining high school for him.
Oh, God, so good.
Which is my favorite. And then we see Annie actually have her meltdown because she's losing every single award she feels she's qualified for, and her tipping point.
At the party they were hanging out at.
At the like high
in the
school
flashback,
like graduation party, basically, and their flashback. So we see her tipping point is when she loses most likely to succeed because she's been losing every award to Troy Barnes. Including most likely to succeed, which is just ridiculous. So she has a freak out. She tells him that he's just like
on Adderall.
Exactly. She's all crazy. She tells him he's like a mindless robot that they tell to go wherever he wants to go. Freaks out him, and Troy's just like, "Do I know you? Like, do you go to my school?" So she screams and runs out the sliding glass door and breaks it and shatters it and ends up having to have, I think, what does she say, 6 different reconstructive surgeries.
Yeah.
Oosh.
Yep. So she's like, how dare you say that I ruined your life? And then Troy said he had to smile when he didn't feel like smiling. But we also find out that that's the reason that Troy faked his injury, because everything Annie said to him ended up getting to him so much.
And so he messed up his keg stand.
Yep.
And
cake flip or whatever.
Cake flip.
Like, oh, no.
Yep.
So then Abed makes another connection, actually. After Shirley reveals she had to pick her kids up at the mall that day, Abed realizes he's the reason Shirley left Andre early, and the reason Andre went to the strip club, because he was telling Shirley's children not to see the Phantom Menace in theaters.
Yeah, he was like fully verbally assaulting them in the movie theater, and he was accosting all people who were going to go see that movie.
Exactly. So in turn, because of that, Abed's dad had to take him to a therapist after the movie theater got a restraining order on him. So while Abed is at that therapist's office, he tells the doctor about Annie stealing the notepad.
Yeah.
On the way to the office, Annie with her notepad passes by Britta, who is running with the monkey she freed on her shoulder from the animal animal testing place next door, and
Which
Abed...
it's very heavily revealed or implied that that's Annie's
boobs.
Annie's
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep. Nice. Thank you for pointing that out. Oh, I love that.
Also, Abed's dad makes a quick reappearance in this flashback.
That's true.
We do
Yes,
see Abed's
very
dad.
briefly. So then after all this, Abed essentially declares himself the villain who's responsible for bringing all these negative consequences on everybody.
Set the ball in motion, yeah.
Yep. So everyone's kind of startled by all these different revelations that they've come to, and the group kind of leaves and all goes their separate ways. Abed's at the Greendale Mall later eating some frozen yogurt when Jeff shows up, weirdly enough, and then all the rest of the study group starts to show up, but separately, and then it's just so weird because they're like, why would we all decide that we wanted frozen yogurt at the same time? And then while they're eating, Troy mentions it was actually at this frozen yogurt place that he decided to go to Greendale.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else responds that this was also where they decided to go to Greendale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in another flashback, we see the dean and Chang handing out flyers for Greendale at the mall that day.
Yeah.
So the dean's handing them out in the mall, and Chang goes to the yogurt shop to hand them out. So Chang is the one who gives everyone a flyer. And the dean actually has this really funny moment where Shirley throws away her lingerie, and he finds it on the ground, and he's like, I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me.
Call back
And
to
we
the
get a
season
call
one
back.
joke, yeah.
Exactly. The study group realizes they were meant to meet and be together. Shirley thinks it's God, the higher power.
Of
Yes.
course.
But Abed actually realizes and thinks that it's Chang because he's the one who gave them all the flyers at the yogurt shop. So he goes back to the school and he has this conversation with Kevin, and he ends up calling Kevin Chang on purpose and says that everyone deserves a second chance, and basically lets him know that, I know you're also not Kevin, but you can be whoever you want to be because everyone deserves a second chance, especially at Greendale.
Yep.
So Chang ends up meeting up with them for Froyo after he mails the lease renewal.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we see an end tag with Dean Spreck supposedly putting his plan B into motion because Chang calls him and quits.
Yep.
Exactly.
Chang decides to stop trying to betray the study group because Abed actually reached out to him and acknowledged him.
Exactly, and was there for him. So that's a really cool moment that we get. And like you said, this is a really high concept, really fun episode. I liked that they tried to do a thing that the study group all had an interconnected past, but I could have also been okay with the fact that the study group just met at Greendale for the first time. They didn't.
Exactly.
This
That's
feels a
true.
little
that
extra.
would have been okay,
Yeah.
but this exactly it does feel extra. It feels fun. It feels like they really tried. What I do appreciate is like when they're going to the flashbacks, they do like a montage of like they look like comic book panels, but they're really scenes that we've seen in the
From
show.
past
Yeah, they're actually
episodes.
stills
Yes,
from
you're so
episodes.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see Jeff covered in like the white, all the stuff from the monkey gas
Pierce
when he's being in the
episode,
vest.
yeah.
Season 3, yeah.
We see them dressed up as like the magicians from Chang's
Yes.
episode.
Oh my god.
Yes.
From the party episode, yeah.
Exactly. So it's really fun how they do
We
it.
see the dean in the pink, like, Diana Ross gown.
From one of the
yeah.
songs, you're so
yeah.
right.
We're going to be a mainstream dream.
Yes,
that one, yeah. and
yes,
he comes out after
yes.
Shirley's in
That's
it. Yeah.
so true. So
We
it's
see one
really
of
cool
those.
because they're kind of like, they're honoring all of the past things and all the things we
And
found out about
references,
all these
yeah.
characters from Community. So it's a really heartfelt episode, and I think that's why, even though I don't think it was necessary to have the characters have all these, like, instances where they met before, I do think it's a really sweet episode, and I guess I do like
It
that they're
doesn't
all
hurt the
destined to
series.
meet.
It's
No,
nice.
it doesn't.
It just doesn't feel necessary.
And then I guess it makes it seem like, you know what, if this group was destined to meet, then it's like these weirdos were supposed to be together and find each other and help each other.
Yeah, and I see that they try to loop stuff in. Like when I was doing research, I found on what the fan wikis, right? They were saying Britta first met Annie's boobs when she liberated the monkey from the medical testing lab, which
Very cool.
We talked about, obviously. But she does mention, I guess, and I didn't catch it, but she suggests that if the monkey bit someone, it could amuse them to become psychotic.
Yeah.
Which, again, that might feel like maybe a little bit of retcon to be like, that's why Chang ends up going crazy
because he was bit by
the monkey living in the vents.
Oh my god.
So I appreciate a lot of the stuff that they set up, and it's like, it's very creative where it's like, Abed is the reason Shirley doesn't go home, and then he goes to the strip club, and like, so I think they did a good job at it, but yeah, it doesn't serve really to the growth of the group, just that it makes them feel even closer because they've always were meant to meet.
To have met each other.
But, I felt the same way that both of you guys felt, where it was like, but we could have not had this episode, and I probably would have been fine too.
Yeah, I think the growth it serves is really at the end where Abed goes to Chang, and he helps Chang, because the way that he treats Chang here directly affects the next episode.
Yeah, 100%. Which, I guess that takes us right into it,
right?
We'll
go into it. This is our final episode of the season.
Season finale.
Season finale of Season 4, Episode 13, Advanced introduction to finality.
Yeah, which...
They don't know if they're going to come back again, so they're
Exactly.
going to bookend it again.
So we get another season/series ending.
Yes.
So now we have 2, which isn't confusing at all.
No, definitely not.
Right? It's like the whole Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, and then it's
Oh my
Halloween, Halloween
God.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Right? Not confusing.
No. So if you can keep up, this is Advanced Introduction to Finality.
Yep.
So this one actually starts off with Jeff meeting up with one of his old partners, who we've never actually seen before.
Mhm.
So it's a
Spoiler,
new
right?
old partner. Yes, from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And his name is Mark from his lawyering days.
Yes.
And he ends up offering Jeff a position at a new firm that he's opening. Jeff is a little reluctant and hesitant to agree, but he ends up going with it anyway under Mark's sort of like peer pressure. So then we go, and the study group is discussing their next semester as they're on their way into the study room. And then once they're inside, they surprise Jeff with a little graduation party in his honor. And they end up finding out that Greendale isn't having a ceremony, and they're upset.
Yeah.
And they insist that they accompany Jeff to the dean's office to witness the ceremony that they want to have.
Him receiving his degree.
Exactly.
Right?
It's got to be a big deal. So once they're there, Jeff is a little upset by the lack of pageantry and agrees to a little bit more. And Annie and the dean begin to start planning his graduation wedding ceremony, which is the best. So later on at a bar, Jeff actually reveals to, surprise, surprise, Britta, that he has a job lined up, but he's nervous that his leaving will negatively affect the study group.
Yeah.
That's what he says he's nervous about.
Yeah.
Britta says, everyone's happy for you. Everyone wants you to succeed. They know this is what Jeff's wanted, and they want him to have it. She's like, even Abed is happy for him, and Abed's better at dealing with change since Britta started therapizing him, and he hardly ever mentions that darkest timeline anymore. And Jeff said he realizes that he just needs to give Abed a chance. So the next day at the study session, Jeff shows up and suggests that to avoid any more soda hang-ups, they should roll
party.
a die. Yeah. They should roll a die to figure out who brings the soda.
I love that.
Which is
because
my
Troy's
favorite.
just like, I didn't forget the soda. I just drank it all.
It's the best. So Jeff tosses the die in the air, and it ends up landing in the cracks of the study room table, and no number shows up.
Yeah.
So Abed's worried and tries to play it off and thinks it's an omen, and Jeff is really, really dissatisfied with the outcome because he was expecting something more to happen. So the dean is making a Jeffrey collage in his office.
Yes.
And somehow he doesn't notice a portal opening right behind him where evil Jeff from the darkest
A
timeline
la
appears.
Terminator. It's
Yeah.
the exact
Yes.
same thing they do in Terminator.
It's
Like the sphere,
glorious.
and then the dude appears in like the position. and
Yeah.
gets up.
Yeah, it's great. So he dresses in Jeff's clothes at Jeff's locker, and Britta ends up confronting him, and she says that she knows why he's scared and why he's avoiding graduating. It's because he doesn't know if he wants to take the job, and she's like, take the job, don't take the job. No matter what, the study group is always going to be there for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So she leaves him, and evil Annie approaches him, and they decide that they to darken this timeline, they have to get Jeff to take the job.
Yeah.
That's their whole mission.
Yes.
So evil Jeff ends up going and taunting Annie from our timeline about her feelings for him, and he tells her that he's leaving her and Greendale behind forever.
Yeah.
It's really hardcore. So Annie finds the real Jeff later, and she yells at him for being so rude, and says she's not going to his graduation, and Jeff is really confused. He has no idea what's going on. So Abed in the hallway is confronted by evil Jeff, and he knows an evil doppelganger when he sees one.
Yep.
So he knows immediately. Also, your arm makes a weird clicking noise whenever you move it.
Oh, I love
So there's that, too.
Bless you. I loved that, by the way. Like, I loved watching Annie, like, screw on
The arm, yep, wait
his
for the
arm,
click.
Yeah.
This whole ordeal. So Abed is transported to the darkest timeline by an upgraded paintball Jeff that evil Jeff shoots him with. And it's really hardcore, and it's supposed to be our last paintball episode, but doesn't really give us anything we want.
Yeah.
Just gonna say it. At least not
True.
for me, anyway.
No.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So much to say.
So then we see evil Annie steal Jeff's phone, and evil Jeff goes and gives Shirley and Troy some uninvites to his graduation, and he insults the both of them while doing so. So then we go to the darkest timeline, and we see evil Abed approach regular Abed, and he tells him that he's reformed, and he's focused on brightening this timeline, and he says evil Jeff has taken over villain-wise this year.
I love that.
And he's taken the evil study group to the prime line to take over and darken it. And evil Abed is going to help Abed get supplies and agrees to take him home to save Jeff. And they have to wait to watch the Cape reboot that is starting in that time. So the dean ends up confronting Jeff, and he throws his degree at him while he's in a wedding dress.
Oh my god, full on like eyeliner smeared.
Like mascara,
it was
everything. He's having a breakdown. He can't believe the hurtful things Jeff has said to him, and he storms away, and Jeff is even more confused. Evil Annie comes in and says that Jeff left his phone somewhere, and
dressed all sexy.
Exactly, in this red dress. Oh my god. And she says he has a missing message from a guy named Mark. And Jeff is too confused about what's happening with his friends to really care about what's going on with that. And Evil Annie says they're losing him. So Evil Jeff shows up. And he tries to convince Jeff to leave Greendale and reclaim his proper life.
Yes.
So Jeff refuses without his study group. He says he's grown and changed too much and made too many dioramas. And as Evil Jeff goes to shoot him, Chang comes in and jumps in front of Jeff and saves his life. And he goes, friendship! And then he gets shot with the paintball and I guess transported to the darkest timeline.
Right.
Yep.
So Jeff escapes and the rest of the evil study group joins Evil Jeff and Evil Annie. Real Jeff goes back to the apartment where Troy, Abed, and Britta are, I think. Oh, and Annie as well. Everyone's meeting there and he tries to explain to them what's going on. Nobody believes him until Abed shows up with the doppelganger from the darkest timeline. And he shoots him as proof. He informs everyone that they have an interdimensional battle on their hands, and everybody needs to get ready because they have to go to war and defeat the evil study group who has come to darken their timeline. So we see the evil study group all enter the cafeteria. Evil Pierce ends up confronting everyone. He shows up, missing his leg, and he says he faked his death over a year ago to teach them a lesson. But he can't remember what it was because it was so long ago.
Yeah.
So he's upset at all of them, and he wants to know how he can help. And Evil Britta says, basically, the first person to shoot themselves wins. So Evil Pierce shoots himself, and
literally,
gets rid of himself, gets some of his paint on Evil Britta, and she's gone.
You're right.
While Evil Jeff is lamenting about her and complaining about how she ruins everything. Real Britta tries to defend her, and their group gets noticed.
Yeah.
And Jeff repeats Evil Jeff's every time. And it's very funny. So the study group faces off with themselves as the evil study group. Everyone's basically winning against the evil version of themselves, and only Jeff is left to take down Evil Jeff.
Yeah.
So Abed informs Jeff that this is all a daydream and none of this is real. Look around you. All the vending machines are filled with meats and hard-boiled eggs. This can't be real. And Abed tells Jeff that Evil Jeff represents who Jeff used to be, but Abed reminds Jeff that his friendship with the study group has changed him and he's a better person now because of it, and he knows that. So Jeff calls out Evil Jeff, and Evil Jeff goes to shoot him. Jeff freezes his paintball, picks it up and throws it, and then shoots him. And then we see that this was all really a daydream. We're back in the study room. Jeff never actually threw the die. He's still holding it. And he says, who cares if we have soda? I've got all I need right here with you guys, because he has his family. And then Troy's like, yeah, who needs soda? So then we're at Jeff's graduation ceremony, and like literally everyone is there, all of our side characters. We have Neil, Leonard, Magnitude, Todd, Garrett, Vicky, even Kendra with a QU is there.
Yes, they're all
Everybody's
back.
present to see Jeff graduate. And Jeff is actually finally at a loss for words when everyone asks him to make a speech. They want a winger speech about graduating, and he doesn't know how to express how grateful he is for what these 7 people have done for him. So he's actually interrupted by Pierce after his little mini speech that he makes, who demands to graduate first, which Jeff says is actually fitting.
Yeah.
Back in the study room, they're all having like a celebratory dinner, and Jeff lets everyone know that he's declined Mark's offer and he wants to focus helping smaller law firms, which will in turn allow him to stay in the area and keep in touch with everyone and settle any arguments about who misses him more, which Abed and Britta both raise their hands to, which I think is very cute. And then Abed leads everyone in toast together to Jeff, and we get a really good end tag with Evil Troy and Evil Abed in the morning.
Yes.
And they see what's going on in all the other dark timelines. So I think we go to timeline number 5, and it's the one with Troy and Britta, and they're married, and they have, there's fires in Nairobi, and they have a baby named Chewbacca, which means he who hunts bounty, which is the best. And then Evil Jeff interrupts them to tell them that their show doesn't exist, and it's just a really great scene where even Evil Jeff can't let Evil Troy and Evil Abed do their fake little talk show.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
But that is our season finale for season 4 of Community.
That is the last episode.
Yeah.
Jeff realizes that he's grown and changed too much and needs a study group, even though he already realized this last season.
Exactly.
Right?
And then it's like I think you guys said even earlier, this season feels very much like a Jeff-centered season,
Yes.
like we had
It's all
in
about
season
Jeff
1.
again.
And I think this show really hit its stride in season 2 and 3 when it was about all of the other characters. So it's cool because I feel like Jeff's arc is completed in this episode, but no one else gets anything. Like you said, no one else graduates early but Jeff.
No,
like,
I mean, Pierce technically does, but
Yeah,
they're
but
also
that's
just
it.
like by
So
Pierce.
everyone else is just kind of forgotten
Yeah.
so that Jeff can realize that he's a good person, which is something he's already realized.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
the
exactly.
study group has changed him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, did we really need that a second time? Like,
No.
did he forget it at the beginning of season 4 and he had
Yeah.
to relearn it? I don't know. Like, we talked about it a little bit before, but it feels like this is not Jeff's way of coping. That
No.
doesn't seem authentic
No,
to him, that
Jesus
he would
Christ.
adopt.
this whole like sci-fi paintball scenario.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's an Abed.
Darkest timeline
thing.
bullshit. He literally goes,
He was
Abed,
vehemently
there's no
saying-
such thing as another timelines. Like
Exactly.
he said it 6
Now, all of a
fucking
sudden,
times.
he's not only bought into it so much, but that he's using it as his coping mechanism.
Exactly. It's like a whole reality within his own head now.
And again, it's like, I feel like he's only so scared to go out and deal with being out of Greendale
Yeah.
because they're trying to push him back into like, well, you're going to be your old lawyer self and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And so, of course, we get the growth at the end of like, he declines the offer. But everything leading up to before that, it was just like, the uncertainty of what his life was going to look like. He couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think that that's giving Jeff enough credit.
Absolutely.
Like, he did grow. He did change. I don't know why he needed this darkest timeline trope to basically help him figure out that he wanted to be a lawyer for smaller firms.
Yep.
I feel
Yeah.
like that could have came about in a more organic way. And it just feels like everything about this is like, remember this, remember that, we're going to bring it all back. And like, it felt like it was trying to be like fan service, but it doesn't pay like proper tribute to the characters.
See, I'm glad he said fan service because a real huge criticism of season 3, and it makes me think the showrunners and writers tried correcting it with it. A criticism that a lot of people had, and like I was reading to Miranda, is like they didn't like that Jeff wasn't the main character. That
I
it
don't
wasn't
get
Jeff
that.
centric. Neither do I, and like the overarching critical opinions and all that agree that like it only gets better.
Yeah.
When they kind of detach from Jeff. But like Jeff is still like it's not even like Jeff's like
Jeff is still
not
central.
in episodes. He's
Yeah,
in every episode. He's in
exactly.
the A or B story.
Exactly. He's very much involved in
He
what's
still
going
has
on.
the same amount of funny jokes. It's just that
Mhm.
the focus is on other characters. And I feel like in this season they were like, oh man, people really didn't like that. We don't have Dan Harmon. We want to compensate for it. I feel like it is fan service. We're going to give him what we want. We're going to give him Jeff's season again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna give
And
him
it's
all Jeff.
weak because it's half the amount of time, and like the stories are like they start and they finish. It's about Jeff. It's about Jeff getting over the summer classes being selfish. Start and finish. It's about Jeff and his dad. Start and finish. It's about him dealing with graduating. Start and finish.
Mhm.
So it's like it is a Jeff season, but then like it's just like blips of
Yeah,
him.
and I
There's
feel
no
like,
narrative, no arc. I
Yeah,
don't see anything.
exactly. This season, I don't feel
I mean,
like there's an
graduating.
overarching
No, not at
narrative.
all.
Exactly.
Besides
Besides the fact
graduating.
that Jeff is graduating
Yep.
early.
Yeah.
Whereas with every season before, with double the amount of episodes, we had a full season-long arch for each season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something that we followed all the way through, a story that was being kind of tended to throughout the whole season.
Yep.
Well,
And
to
with
deal
this
with
one,
these
it feels like
antics.
Yeah, and this one feels like a season of a bunch of disjointed episodes
To
that
end
didn't
up here.
have a connection of
Yeah.
where it was building to.
Exactly,
They were,
just
like,
for us to end up here.
Story driven and antics were
And
in
I
the
think-
background.
Exactly, and I think it really
It's
does
bad.
show that a new group of showrunners took
Yeah.
the show over this season. It's
Mhm.
it's very apparent.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe this is a perfect time to kind of break down this season as a whole
think
as to
so.
what was going on behind the scenes. So
Yeah, because I think that's a really big contributing factor to what we end up seeing on screen is all of the things going on behind the scenes.
exactly,
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
exactly. So this season we see a huge departure of original vet producers, writers, people who are
Yeah,
integral to this show.
exactly.
The Russo brothers are gone, making movies.
Dino Stamilopoulos, who's a longtime producer, Starburns as
Starburns
well.
is
Yeah,
gone.
Left.
he wrote a couple episodes. I know he was probably involved in the writing team. Dan
He was a
Harmon's
big producer.
gone.
Yeah, Dan
Obviously.
Harmon's obviously
A lot of
gone.
the
The Russos
big-
are gone, like you said.
Yeah, the big creative forces behind Community starting are all gone, essentially,
Yeah.
in this season.
And it's like we have to watch these people do their best with characters that are living, breathing things, and they just can't execute it the way that they could before.
Exactly.
And
We've used the analogy driving a car, and it's like Dan Harmon's car that he built himself from the ground up.
exactly, it was this
And he
custom
knew how
car.
to drive it, and it's his car, and all of a sudden he had to park, and someone else started to take the car and drive. And they know how to drive, but they didn't drive like Dan Harmon, and it's
Right.
not their car, and
Mhm.
it shows. Like
Yeah.
they're it doesn't feel like a glove like it did with Dan Harmon. It felt like he
Yeah.
existed in these characters, in these scripts, and he put his passion into it, which it shows. It ultimately is why he got fired, but it just totally shows that like someone else is behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And it's from like the first beat.
I think we've all said before, we feel like a lot of these episodes feel like they could have been like spec scripts that someone wrote for the show. It doesn't feel authentic. The characters don't feel true to themselves. A lot of their decisions that they make don't make sense.
Their
really.
motives are really questionable this
place.
season.
Yep.
And I think another thing that we definitely have to touch base on is not only what's happening creatively behind the scenes with just the staff that's there, but the morale that's on set, right?
Yeah,
the cast,
too.
the crew, what's the climate look like on set, right?
Coming back from season 3 where they find out our showrunner has gotten fired. There was that incident at the season 3 wrap party
so what happened at the wrap
so
party?
at the season 3 wrap party, basically Dan Harmon got a chant going that said like "fuck you, Chase," like "fuck you, Chevy Chase," and Chevy Chase. Well, because he was a nightmare to deal with. He didn't like. Okay.
And we
to
talked
be fair,
about,
yes, exactly.
We talked about how he didn't want to give us that tender moment at the end of
exactly. In our last
he didn't want to
episode.
work long hours. He didn't want to cooperate with Dan Harmon on some of his thoughts, and Dan Harmon, tired of him and probably aware that he isn't going to have a show
and
next.
Dan Harmon being a dick. Like,
he's a total prick.
We've all talked about it.
He's an
Dan
asshole.
Harmon, and I've read it in multiple
Super funny,
articles
but he's
that
a
he
dick.
is difficult to work with incredibly,
And he gets the "fuck you, Chase" thing going, and it's like, yeah, if you want to do that, that's one
and
thing.
His
but
wife
Chevy
was
Chase's
there.
wife and daughter were there, and that's the point where Chevy Chase was like, I'm sure there's this whole tension going on in this fighting, but a point was crossed, and he basically called him and left him a seething message. And then Dan Harmon played that message for a group of friends, and then we heard that recording of it when we were doing research.
The internet.
And it was such a nasty situation. And we saw the ass end of it, so I can only imagine all of the tension that's building up for 3 seasons. All of the times Chevy Chase has walked off set, because it's a common thing. Like, they didn't be like, he only did it when it was bad. Like, he just bounced because he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And
I think that explains a lot of the retaliation that we see towards Chase.
His character.
His character gets gimped. His like knees are broken. It's like
from the very first episode.
You get minutes compared to scenes.
Like you said, he's reduced to gay ball in episode 1.
Exactly.
He's making racist
and
epithets
like said,
every single episode.
Before he had some sort of like growth, he would also have opportunities to not be the same person.
Exactly.
And it feels like they were like, well, we don't like you, so we're pigeonholing your character.
Exactly.
Like he was a Zen New Age Buddhist. Like I know that he's very old school and conservative, but he also was kind of like that weird, funky, like what's that bitch who ran for president? That Marianne.
Oh yeah, the one who was an author. She was a lot.
It's kind of that too, where it's like I'm older, I'm kind of funky and wise. I'm bringing this like old school West Coast gemstone weird shit.
Yeah.
And I mean that aspect has been completely dropped. In fact, we don't come back to it until after this season.
Yeah.
Because of reasons, obviously.
Exactly. Yes.
But like it's frustrating because they're just like they really make him a one-dimensional character, which leads to more unfortunate behind-the-scenes incidents where basically in advanced documentary filmmaking, obviously at this point it's been 4 seasons of tension. Chevy Chase isn't happy. His character is in a really, really negative like downturn right now.
And at this point, we've talked about it. Yeah, it's apparent. Everybody can see it. He's being separated from the cast.
Physically separated from the cast.
Yeah,
physically separated within the story.
Imagine getting that script handed to you and you see those are your lines.
Chevy, you're going to act in a room and you're going to talk to a wall.
Yeah.
That's got to be offensive.
No, it is. And he's the most decorated actor there.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's
show
the thing.
person, I should say.
He really is, though, and so I mean, and not that it's right, not that we're
absolutely not
advocating for that kind of behavior.
No,
but
decoration doesn't. Just because you're a decorated person doesn't mean you get to act however you want.
But we all say that we understand why he maybe felt the way that he felt.
Exactly.
Definitely,
and that contributes to how he acts.
Basically, so what happened is that he felt with basically the senior blackface Winston joke in advanced filmmaking.
Where he's doing the hand puppets.
Where he's doing the hand puppets, where it's a black dude who's Mexican with a hat and an afro and a sombrero. And then he's like, oh, wow. And Jeff's like, good, I'm counting on your really racistness, which is also like, come on. Everyone thinks he's a one-dimensional character, not just the writers. That's fucked up, even the characters on the show.
Yeah.
And then he pulls up his left hand, and it is like Simpsons-colored skin Asian person. That seems a little bit in character for Pierce. It seems extreme, and it seems pretty bad, and it's like the character's banking on like Pierce's worst qualities, but that really upset Chevy Chase. Because to him, he'd been seeing the last couple episodes, the jokes he was really making were just racial jokes. And he was really upset about it, and he basically said to the ilk of like, it's basically like Pierce should just be saying N-word, N-word, N-word. And
then he did say that.
No,
Yes.
that's the thing. Is he said it's like Pierce was saying the verbiage of those words 3 times in front of the cast and crew, in front of everybody. Everyone got offended. To be fair, the director of that episode was defending Pierce and saying that he was trying to use the term to explain it in a political sense, that it wasn't meant to offend anybody, but really just speak to how racist and how offended he was over how Pierce was turning out. He just used the absolute worst example to express that he's upset with how racist his character is getting by saying something incredibly racist and insensitive.
He's mad at how they're treating Pierce, and then he acts just like Pierce.
So it's like you feel for him because he's upset his character is getting, honestly, character assassinated.
Yeah.
But in expressing that, he does something as bad as the character he's complaining about. So from that point, everyone is just like, whoa! Chevy Chase storms off set. He comes back later, away from everyone, films additional scenes. Because of the production schedule, that's why we see in a couple episodes towards the end of the season, he's just not in it.
Yeah,
they write him off. In Heroic Origins, they get an extra to film basically Pierce's scene, and they don't even get him to voice act the part.
Yeah. So
they basically were just like, we're going to get you for what we need you to be, and then we're done with you. And then Chevy Chase announced, I think on Twitter, November 21st, 2012, like, I'm out. I'm done. You know, this is before they actually premiered their actual season, so it was another thing where it was just like, whoa, Community season 4 hasn't even come out, and Chevy Chase says he quits.
Chevy Chase isn't invited.
And I mean, like, I left. I quit.
Yeah, quit.
I'm done.
There's bad blood.
And then you're going to see, like, oh, yeah, well, it makes sense he quit because he's barely in some episodes, and then there's actual episodes where he's just not there, and that's because he's gone from the show. He's not filming anymore.
Yeah, and then it's like all of that going on coupled with now you've been moved to mid-season, and you didn't know ahead of time when you were filming.
Yeah,
or else
you started filming in August, and they were known in October. That's a month and a half.
And it's like, maybe we want to fucking film the holiday episodes.
Holiday episodes.
Oh my god, look at how foolish they look.
They look like idiots when this came out, and it was Valentine's Day, and they had a Halloween episode airing.
And due to everything going on with Pierce, they moved around how the episodes aired.
Too.
Yeah, and that fucked everything up too. So it's like, why is the Thanksgiving episode a full month after the Halloween episode? Usually they're a little bit closer together, but fine, there are like 4 episodes between those. Then there are quite a few more until we get Christmas
after Thanksgiving.
It makes no sense, and Ashley and I were talking about it a little before, but it was like all of these things happened that basically give it the kiss of death. It was it was on Fridays. Who watch TV shows on Fridays? You know,
they moved it mid-season. They announced that they were moving it to mid-season the day
it was supposed to
on October 19th.
Exactly,
the community people had to send out a video.
They sent out a video saying, "Hey, like we're actually going to be premiering, mid-season."
Yeah.
And it was tongue-in-cheek because they couldn't clearly call them out and be like, this is fucking bullshit.
Exactly.
But obviously they weren't happy either.
And NBC said like, oh, well, we're happy. NBC basically said like, oh, we're happy with them, and the show Whitney at the same time was out. We're happy with Whitney and Community. We just want to focus on our earlier in the week broadcasting that gets bigger numbers and has always gotten bigger numbers. It's just like, you can't blame Community for not be during the best time to watch TV and be like, well, why aren't you performing? It's like, well, put me on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, when people are home and watching television.
TV.
Yeah, because they're like, no, you have a cult following.
Yeah.
They should follow you everywhere. And then they use that as like a way to be like, oh, well, you must not be that good, so now we can cancel you.
Cult following still have jobs on Friday night, still want to go out, still want to have fun. And it's such a shit. Like, they were just set up to fail. Like, it's almost like NBC's like, this tragedy. They jumped off the building and died, and it's just like, you put them on top of there, you put them on top of the ledge, you put a bandana in front of them, and basically what you did was, look, you're on top of a building.
Yeah.
And let you die. And during your free fall, you get season 4. Sorry. Yeah. And they basically said, we're going to put Community and Whitney, well, obviously didn't care about that as much, but we're going to put them in our back pocket, and we're going to see how our early in the week programming is going to do for a while. And they said, we are not going to invest in it.
And so that coupled with, again, that climate, that tension, everything going on with the money, going on with the network, coupled with cast and crew morale, everything that's going on with them and the tension and the issues, it kind of makes sense that everything that we get feels like a caricature of what the show actually is.
Right.
it's funny because it's like, Ashley and I have talked about it a lot. It's like, oh, I'll take that beat. Like, that story can stay. I really like this. But we keep finding and, like, talking about ways in which we were like, but this should have happened.
Exactly.
This should have made more sense here. And I think...
Earlier today, we were rewriting episodes as we were
literally,
talking about
and we may just end up rewriting the whole the fourth season, because I feel like there is valuable stuff there, and you definitely see, like, the people who were writing the show still very much cared, and there were people that were around through the inception of the show, but it does feel like, in losing some of that, the creative juices that were there at its inception and at its birth, that were really integral to, like, those voices being there.
They were primordial. They were the thing that it grew out of.
And without those, in their absence, we get people that take a shot at representing those voices, and it just doesn't land.
No, it totally falls flat.
And I think you have a real problem with your show if, I mean, and I know we're diehard fans, I know we're extra critical, but I think it lends a huge problem to your show when we're like, wait, we could have written this in a better way for fans.
We're imagining up something that works out better in our heads.
And it's because
and
it's not that hard.
And we never did that with any other, we never did that for Medial Chaos Theory, we never did that with the first paintball. We never did that with Chang pretending to be dead or anything. We were so satisfied with our result.
Because
and this one just leaves us wanting.
Yeah.
We still watch it and we still love it. Like, it's still enjoyable to watch, but it's just such
And the jokes land, but again, Ashley and I talked about it. A lot of the season's carried by Donald Glover, who's just excellent. He's
Season
just
4
a
is
star.
Definitely carried by
But the issue, and we talked about it, is they make him comedic relief instead of giving him a role to play.
Yep.
Right.
Giving him an arc to fill, like the AC Repair School.
Absolutely.
Or being able to follow through in his relationship with Britta, but it's so segmented and disjointed that it's like the moments that we get of real character growth and development seem lost in
all of the other
noise of everything else, right?
I think they're trying to go so hard to be like, yeah, these are still the zany, crazy characters that you love, and they're still weird, and they do these weird things, and it's like, well, yeah, that's what they do, but they also get themselves into situations where they have to be real people and deal with real emotions and real consequences.
Yeah.
And Stone kind of mentioned it when we were doing a lot of research. Dan Harmon's response to season 4 was really just lashing and just absolutely scathing.
Yeah, he's not a happy boy.
Because he's a bad sport, and some of the comments that we read were dated. I will say that. I think it was before
he has since apologized.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's before he made peace with the fact that the reason his show gets turned into what it is, these changes and these things that really do affect his story happen, are direct results of his behavior.
Yep.
If he was allowed to stay on set, and I know that he was fired again on paper for the show not performing, but it begs the question of, would that have been an issue if he wasn't such an asshole and hard to work with, you know?
Exactly.
So, I think back then when he had those comments, it was back before he had made peace with the fact that he had a lot of blame in this.
And he had a lot of work to do on himself.
Exactly, and I think he's since remedied that in his apologize and obviously understands it. But in an old article that we read, or an old post that we read of his, that he was basically saying that, like, watching season 4 and watching these characters become caricatures of themselves was like watching his family be raped.
Oh.
Yeah.
And, like,
in front of him.
Yeah, in front of him. Watching his family be raped in front of him. And I was like, you don't need to talk about it like that. You're such a fucking vile person. And he's like, and watching that just puts things into perspective. You see what things are really important. And I'm like, again, you could have said it in so many other ways, but it obviously just shows that for him it was like a complete bastardization of his work.
What he created.
And it really explains why we go the direction that we go in season 5
after this,
upon his return, which we'll talk about more.
Right. So true, because he very much comes back with a vengeance to try to be like, oh, season 4 did this, fuck season 4.
Let me not only undo it, let me say that was the year that there was this gas leak that made us, everything
all go crazy.
Exactly. And it's this thing that we all agree on, like, a few different characters talk about the gas leak here, and it's a huge fuck you to everybody during this season. And I don't think it's fair, because I'm sure everybody wanted to do a good job, and they were just taking the bones that they were left with and trying to make a goddamn stew out of it. Yeah. And they did their best. But, I think we all agree that some things land and some parts would stay in our fan fiction, and a lot would go.
Absolutely.
Or be replaced for different conflict, for better conflict, for better development.
Ones that make more sense for the characters who have known each other for 3 going on 4 years now.
Yeah. And I think that's why we are so critical, right? It's like we've been with these characters for for so many years now, for so many episodes, and have seen them in so many different situations
Exactly.
that it's like, this doesn't feel right.
No.
I actually feel like I know these characters well enough to know and to determine how they would like appropriately, effectively behave in this situation. So I think that's kind of a perfect place to wrap it on up. We obviously have
nicely,
a lot of.
We were very opinionated.
We
this
were.
episode.
We had a lot of
to
stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm glad because I think after this, things are really on the up and up for the show. It's a weird year, and and again, that's why we thought it was so important to talk about what's going on behind the scenes, because we really feel like it's just a culmination of so many different things that turned season 4 into
what it ended up being. Yeah, absolutely. That being said, though, like I think we all mentioned earlier, we do still enjoy and like this season, and we love the show no matter what, but there's definitely a tone to this season that wasn't present before and isn't present when it's gone.
Yeah. Exactly. It's individualistic to this season.
Absolutely.
So we'll be back next week with episode 5, and we're halfway through now. We're really chugging along, so we hope you guys will be back next week for season 5.
Yes, thanks for sticking with us.
Stopping by, and
we look forward to talking at you again a week from now.
Signing off.
Peace out.